Alright, here we go. Hello guys. Welcome back to the thing where I talk about Phoenix way too much. This is going to be part 2 of State of Phoenix, which I guess at this point is just me going over items. So at the time of recording, I kind of got done with the first part, and I was like, man, I didn't really talk about items all that much. It was mostly, yeah, just look at my guide. Look at all the information that my guide is there. That's all the information that you need. That's a lot of information. No one's going to decipher that. So, this video is specifically just talking about items and builds for Phoenix, what items are good on them, what items aren't, and trying to be very specific on that, and try not to get sidetracked by finding more bugs with Supernova. That's the idea. So, Phoenix, he's a hero that's being played. Yeah, people are playing him. That's pretty cool. What does he do? What does he want? That's a good question. Ignore the fact I'm at like level 30. But a lot of the time when you're in lane, you're going to be using your spells kind of a lot, and you're going to be losing a lot of health. So it might be a good idea to have multiple tangos on you, even like a second stack of those, just so you can regenerate health in the lane a lot better. Having a couple iron branches as well, because you can use your tango on a branch that you used on the ground, and you get a doubled duration tango, so you get more health over time. That's a good thing. Also, since Phoenix is universal, he gains 60% of all of his stats as extra damage instead of all of a specific stat. That only means something if you get branches, because you technically get like 2 damage. Yeah, 2 damage every time you get one of these branches. You can also get a Fairy Fire to increase that a little bit further, although you could just go for a branch, but Fairy Fire is kind of unique because you can use it, consume it in order to get some extra health. It's kind of handy whenever you're in lane. Also, since again you're going to be losing a lot of health, it might be beneficial to just have a lot of burst healing options on you. There have been times where I would go into lane with 2 of these. It is more expensive than branches, and you could probably regenerate more if you have tangos and use those branches, but being able to heal 85 extra health just suddenly could turn the tide of a battle. I'd also advise going for at least a mango and just having one on standby. There have been many times where I've reached level 6 and I'm like, I can't wait to do something. But I've been doing other things for like a really long time, and my mana eventually depletes enough to where I don't have the 250 mana required in order to do a successful Fire Spirits Dive Supernova combo, which actually is kind of like your main thing that you want to do in the early game. So having a mango on you, at least, in order to save you the time of, oh man, I didn't notice I needed some extra mana. That getting a mango will just help in those situations. Although, if you're very good on using Supernova very often, using it when it's off cooldown, getting into fights more often than not, you're going to be regenerating a lot of mana anyway, just because that's what your ability does. After the explosion goes off, you get all of your health and mana back. So it makes fighting for a long period of time while you're alive, while you're away from the base, very handy. And whenever you feel like you're running really low on health and mana, you should start trying to look for a fight and make sure that you have enough mana to at least use Supernova in order to get all of that back. For the same reason, going for a Magic Wand is very helpful. The more enemies try to perform specific actions, they're trying to do a bunch of different stuff, you'll get wand charges. Why is there a second Phoenix? Whatever. You'll get wand charges every time someone uses an ability near you. Use it, you gain a burst of extra health and mana. The item is just really good in general, and everyone should get it. Like, there's kind of no exceptions.
Repositioning.
Although, because Phoenix is universal, Magic Wand gives you about +3 stats, that also gives you +6 damage. And you can kind of cheese the system by getting multiple branches. Like, even with this, which seems like a really cheap setup, you just got an extra 6, 8, 10, 12 damage just from that. And that is like an actual valid universal build that a lot of ranged universals go. Though even still, getting some tangos is going to be nice. Have your courier come out and try to ferry tangos in order to keep you surviving. Because, well, you don't really need the tangos all that much, but having them is nice. Something to note going into the early to mid game, try to get a bracer. You could even get a second one later on, but one for now. This is mostly due to Dying Light, allowing you to do a bit of extra damage in an area. Now you might notice I have lost like 400 health, and I'm only doing like very minimal damage. That's because how Dying Light works, it deals 4.5% of your missing health as damage. What that actually means, every 100 health, you only deal like 4.5 damage, which isn't much. But, let's see. Just double checking. Strength increases your health by 22 per strength. Bracer gives you 5 strength, which means you'll get 110 health every time you get a bracer. So every time you buy one, you've increased your potential Dying Light damage by about 4, maybe 5, something like that. So if you're going for more of a core role, I'd recommend getting multiple bracers. Try to get at least a boot, because you do fly. Even though you're a bird, you would like to fly around a lot. You move very slow. You got a very slow 280 move speed. At least get a boot before you go into any of the other bracer items. Also, you might know that I heavily incentivize Helm of Iron Will. This is mostly because the stats that it gives, extra armor and regen, is kind of what Phoenix needs. His base armor is not very high, he only has 3, and his agility gain is not very good either. So having the extra armor is really nice, and having the extra regen also helps, because you can regenerate health that you've lost a lot easier. So what I'm about to say, in my opinion, is a really good core Phoenix option. Go for Boots of Speed. This helps you get around a lot quicker, and one problem I've had while I was playing in some games, I would be on like the other side of the map trying to get some farm, and then I'm like, wait, shoot, I need to be in a team fight in order to do stuff. And, well, that's what Boots of Travels is for. So that allows you to, whenever something happens, you're like, well, I need to go over to a creep and teleport across the whole map in order to get to where I'm needed most. That is the reason behind the Boots of Travel in my opinion. More specifically, you do a lot of damage already, you don't need damage items, and mana, weirdly enough, gets kind of covered with all the bracers that you get. And when you're also working towards Veils and Shivas, you'll eventually get just that little bit extra mana in order to not have to get any mana items. But don't rely on Sunray until like later on in the game. It doesn't do much damage until then anyway. All that to say, in the early parts of the game, try to go for Boots of Travel, extra health. Go on people, doing some extra damage. The more you fight as well, because of Dying Light, the more they fight back, the more health you lose, the more potential damage you have. Just be very careful while you're getting attacked. It's going to be harder and harder to not die when you're at low health, especially when they have really high burst damage that they can do. So that's also where I would recommend, after, you could go for Shivas if you want, or another option is to go for Shroud. That can at least give you some extra durability against magic dealing effects. Also gives you more health to lose, so that's an option. You get like a extra 350 health from it. So, more Dying Light effect. Then later on, get into Shivas just so you can have extra durability. Very, very handy. Also, I keep skipping over Shard. You really should buy this item as soon as you can, at least after you've gotten your Boots of Travel. This is because the actual effect allows you to survive while in Supernova and still use the Sunray. Which, that doesn't sound like it does a whole lot, but what that actually means, normally, when you're using Sunray, a huge weakness is that you can get stunned out of it. Does this... Oh, he stuns from Shadow Walk, that's right. So normally when you're using Sunray, huge counter to it is if you get stunned, because that way the Sunray just gets stopped. Now you have to wait an extra 20 or 30 seconds in order to use it again. Well, wouldn't it be nice if no one could stun you? Oh, look at that, no one's able to stun you. So, thing to note, I don't know how many people actually know this. Activating Supernova does not cancel your current Sun Ray, which allows you to actually get multiple off if you time it right. But it is within your best interest to use Sun Ray just before you Supernova, because if you do that, you can actually have two Sun Rays. Because if you get in a situation where you, for whatever reason, forgot to Sun Ray, you only get one. We'll see that in a moment. You only get one Sun Ray. So, if ever you get into a fight, you have to Sun Ray first before you Supernova every time, just so you can get the extra damage potential of the second Sun Ray. If you watched the first video in the series, you might have remembered that I put a lot of emphasis on the Sun Ray Supernova combo with Shard. That's mostly because that just is the combo that makes Phoenix do the most damage. His other abilities, frankly, even with Dying Light, isn't fast enough to matter. I mean, he's taking damage, definitely, but it's not enough to, like, get rid of him now. And a lot of times in Dota, you kind of need to get rid of people now. And the fastest way for Phoenix to get rid of people now is the Sun Ray Supernova combo. I mean, look at that health go. Oh, it's gone. So that is, in my opinion, a really good core Phoenix build if you're going for Dying Light. On to talking about Hotspot. So, what does Hotspot do? Well, it makes your Sun Ray do increasingly more damage the farther along an enemy is on the line. So that dealt about 1,400 damage to Bounty Hunter with Hotspot. Get that refreshed. So there you go. That's pretty obvious. You do potentially an extra 400, 500 damage, entirely depends on maximum health. But you can do a lot of extra damage with Hotspot. So of course, the standard combo going for Shivas and trying to get that set up can be very potentially damaging. They're trying to run away. Oh wait, while they're running away, they take even more damage than they did before. But if they're very courageous, it doesn't do any more damage, because it only actually does its extra damage at about the halfway mark of the Sun Ray. Something to note is Aether Lens does also work with this. So to show the Bounty Hunter before with a normal Hotspot got down to 1,000, he took an extra 250. This kind of lines up with the cast range of Aether Lens, so you can think of it as much as your cast range is how much extra damage they'll take. Of course, this entirely depends on their maximum health and whatever other damage modifying effects that there are. But that's just a general rule of thumb. Going off of that, if I get a Seer Stone, extra 350 cast range. Get myself a Ethereal Blade. Doesn't increase the cast range much, but now the damage should be an extra 600. Going off of it was normally 1,400? Yeah. That actually dealt a bit more than I thought. I really need to spend some time and go over the numbers linked to this so you people can get an idea of how much actual percentage of their health damage is dealt. I'm not going to go over that in this video. I think I'll do that next video where I'll go over abilities, and then I'll spend some time going over Sun Ray and all the damage potential that can become from cast range bonuses. So, needless to say, if you're going Hotspot, it would be a good idea to at least get an Aether Lens. Although, I would also suggest, even before getting an Aether Lens, getting a Force Staff. Because most of the damage is dealt at the tip, right? Well, what do they do if they walk away and you're not fast enough to catch up? Well, that's what Force Staff is for. So how this works, you can basically give yourself an extra boost. Shoot forward doesn't cancel the Sun Ray. Very nice. Same thing with Blink Dagger as well, where you can actually instantly reposition while you're using it. So someone's getting too far out of the way, whoop, now you're right in front of them. Of course, that means that the damage potential has been lost, but heck, you can even just hit him face blank and then just blink back if you want. There's options to manipulate where you are with Force and Blink Dagger. That's kind of what I'm saying. Also, this is a personal thing I found. A lot of the time, if I try to go for Sunray really early, let's see, normally you would max out Fire Spirits in order to do the extra damage. However, with the build that we're trying to go for is to make Sunray really good. So it might be better to level up Sunray first before you max out Fire Spirits, leaving it at 2 points, dive at 1, and maxing out Sunray, so that you can do as much damage as possible. Problem I found is, in the early levels, Phoenix doesn't have a lot of mana to cast all of that. So I have kind of found a solution. Getting a Null Talisman actually fixes a lot of those problems, like just a casual one. You don't have to think about it. And that'll hold you over until you get Tranks into Aether Lens. Once you get Aether Lens, then your mana problems are also solved, and you can probably just get rid of the Talisman. But if you're short on change, you can probably get that. Or, as another option, wait in a little bit longer to get a Void Stone. Because, weird quirk with how Phoenix works a lot of the time. His abilities have a fairly long 20-second cooldown. Sun Rays, 30-second. Dive is also pretty long. While it does take a long time for your abilities to come back online, that also means that you have nothing to use your mana on, so you end up regenerating a lot of mana. And many times, since it would be beneficial for you to wait to use your abilities before you do anything, you could probably just keep spamming Fire Spirits without much issue. But generally, your mana will not go very low. But if you have something like a Void Stone, that actually gives you just enough mana regen to get mana back from using at least Fire Spirits and the occasional Sunray, and that'll help you regenerate all the mana that you need. So if that's the case, is it just better to go for a straight Void Stone after Treads instead of a Null Talisman? I could see that, but if you want less room for error, Null Talisman's nice. It doesn't give as much regen, but the extra intelligence and other stats and max mana bonus can at least hold you over until you get your Aether Lens. Or, other option, you can try to go for a Force Staff if you need more mobility, and then go into the Aether Lens. But one item or the other will give you enough intelligence to sustain yourself. Although, I guess in that case, if you're going to go for Force Staff first, you could get Null Talisman instead, so that can help you give you mana regen. And of course, we're being supports here. Let's not sleep on the fact that you can get items like Glimmer Cape. Interesting effect with it. You can cast it while you're using Sunray, and you can turn yourself invisible. Actually, what does that look like for the enemy team? I've never actually seen anyone try this. Probably because no one thinks about it. That looks so weird. So now the enemies are faced with a dilemma. How are they going to stun something they can't hit? That actually could work. I need to do that more. So, while doing this build, of course the major benefits. Sunray does a tremendous amount of damage. However, a slight issue is that Phoenix doesn't do a whole lot outside of Sunray. So you kind of have to survive long enough to place a well-aimed Sunray, use Supernova as needed, and those are your two skills that you try to work around with your team. And then using Icarus Dive as a escape or a repositioning tool to set up for Supernova, and using Fire Spirits as a way to deter enemies, while your main primary damage source is Sunray. However, because of this, backline heroes, let's say Ricky Maru, who is coming for you, he is constantly invisible. That's how his Cloak and Dagger works. And he has Smokescreen, which what that does... I'm gonna try and do something. No. So, what does it do? It silences everything in an area. You do need to get detection in order to at least find them easier. And of course, that's like always going to be a problem. Point I'm trying to get to is as powerful as the sun ray effect is, it is very easily cancelable by enemies that get in the back lines. Another example is Night Stalker, because let's see, tries to do something. He has a silence button where he just silences everything around you, or around him, which also includes Phoenix. So let's say you're trying to do that, he'll just jump in and just stop you, which obviously is going to be a bit of an irritation. So because of this, it might also be worth your time to rush a Black Keen bar. Heck, you could probably even rush that before you get anything else. Reason being, activate it, all of a sudden they can't stop you from using your abilities. However, if you're following, you might remember, no one can stop you if you're able to get Sunray or Supernova off first. Trying to silence doesn't do anything. Same with the other guy. You have to figure out when you should hide yourself in the Supernova. You can't move, that's something else to know, so people can just run away. But you're pretty much perfectly safe in there. Even though they could potentially try to do a lot of attacks on the Supernova, if you're careful and you position it hiding away, it stops people from getting stuns or silences on you to stop you from casting Sunray, because you can't, because guarded by Supernova. So, in a weird way, it's sometimes better to just be in the Nova so that you can do your damage for free, basically. But I could see it as a viable option if you can't tell when would be a good time to use Supernova, because where is the enemy team? I don't know where they are. Okay, preemptive BKB. Oh, well, we can't stop him from using his button anymore. That's annoying. Same thing with giving Phoenix an opportunity to use Supernova. BKB could help you just give you a safety net and position for your other abilities. Oh yeah, I am forgetting the best counter to something like this, and that's Nyx. Why? Because he has the ability, Spiked Carapace, where whenever he takes damage from any source, after he activates it, he can stun whoever hit him. I was trying to get Dying Light to work. That doesn't work. Okay. So, trying to use that on him. And he's like, I don't want to get hit by this thing. Boop. Activates his Spiked Carapace. Phoenix damages him, and it instantly stops the Sunray. That is also a reason to get a BKB, because for the same reason, Spiked Carapace doesn't stop him from casting it. Also, I find it very funny that my auto attacks are doing more damage than Sunray. It is max health percentage, you gotta remember that. So if someone has like tons of health, comparatively it does a lot of damage.
Dominating, I guess.
I guess in that case, going up against creeps might also be a difficulty. Because since all the creeps have relatively low max health, I mean, it does do a lot of damage for sure, but you're not going to be clearing out waves. That is what Icarus Dive and Fire Spirits are for. Sunray should be very much saved for whenever you want to really do a lot of damage to the big, hefty targets that are in this line specifically.
Mega kill.
I'm gonna get Nyx out of here before I kill him forever. So, those are builds that I've been kind of theorizing. Going back to Dying Light, with Dying Light you're just going to be a lot more aggressive, a lot more active. So if you're trying to go for a supportive build, of course you could try to go for Bracer, but like I said earlier, the later the game goes, the less overall damage Dying Light does. So you can't really rely on that even as a support later on in the game. So even with me losing about 1,000 health, I'm only doing about 32 damage a second, which, that's not a lot. That is slightly less than a Radiance. Even with like applying for magic resistance. So you still do kind of get a miniature Radiance, but it doesn't really help you do a whole lot. Of course, you could like build for a lot of health and lose a lot of health. So how much damage does that do?
My next meal.
Oh wow, that over 100. If if you get a bunch of reavers. What if you like max out on hearts? Even though that's going to be a bit difficult to test. Okay, so that actually is a lot of damage. I wonder if there's a way you could reliably get at least 2? Sorry, I'm just going on a theorizing tangent. Okay, with 2 hearts alone, you deal about 100 damage. Food for thought, I guess. So, if you're playing support Phoenix, you're not going to be able to get hearts or strength items and at all in order to benefit from Dying Light. That's going to be very expensive, so might want to do that as a core build. But even still, as a support, simply being able to slow the attack speed of everyone is a huge benefit. Blinding Sun also applies a blind to anyone affected by any of your abilities, applying blinds and mischances and whatnot. It makes Phoenix a really annoying hero to fight, which is why he's a good support. You want to focus him, but you can't, because he doesn't allow you to hit him. That's kind of why he's picked. You might remember from my first video that I mentioned Spirit Vessel is a really good option. That is mostly because of how Sunray works with dealing % max health damage. Spirit Vessel does extra % max health damage. It just allows you to do more overall damage to someone while you're using your whole combo on them. Of course, it takes a while for some stuff to take effect, but that's kind of what Phoenix does. Everything takes a while to happen. But, of course, going for Shivas allows you to do that extra bit of damage. When they get hit, allows you to apply just more and more damage on them. This is generally like the safest build that most Phoenixes will go, just because it overall works for what Phoenix wants to do. Going for other items like Boots of Bearing or other support items, Force Staff, Glimmer Cape, kind of flexing into that as needed, depending on if the other support in the game requires extra assistance. Like, man, I just don't have the items, or I'm trying to go for damage. Well, that's where you go for more support items over doing extra damage. Okay, the more I think about it, more I'm like, man, I'm saying a lot of words. What does that even mean? Trying to summarize it, main build that you try to go is Spirit Vessel and go into a Shiva's Guard. That's just the general all-purpose build. But you can flex into different options depending on what your team needs. Does your team need more mobility? There's Force Staff, Glimmer Cape for invisibility and survivability, Yules to stun someone for a moment or protect yourself from silences. Even a bit further down, you could try to... okay, here's an actual case for Greaves. So every single Phoenix will always go for Tranquils. That's because they want to be selfish and get all their health back. Well, what if you have a Guardian Greaves? You don't get a lot of casual health regen, that's true. But honestly, most of the time, with the headdress regen and the burst healing that you get from Guardian Greaves, you could potentially gain more health, especially when you're in a fight, as opposed to having Tranquils. And of course, let's say you have like a bunch of allies that would also really like to have some kind of healing. Boom, you just got them a bunch of healing, a bunch of mana as well. Oh, there's actually been a few times that I would play, and I would go the normal build where I would get Tranquils, and then I would notice that our cores just don't have mana. And I'm like, man, these guys are so mana inefficient. Why are they not good at it? Well, it's because we don't have a Guardian Greaves. It'd be nice if we had, not even Guardian Greaves, just an Arcane Boots. Because that just activates to provide everyone in the area extra mana. Having this item is extremely important. So, if you don't see your other support going for this item, or anyone in the game going for this item, it's probably beneficial to have it. You might have to go it in order to win the game, basically. Did you know it takes mana to cast spells? Wouldn't it be nice to have mana to cast those spells? Buy Arcane Boots today. Of course, you don't have the mana regen, but that's where trying to go for Mechanism comes in, so that you can have burst healing instead. Which, later the game goes, having that burst healing is very good. You also have a purge, so if something happens... let's see. Trying to think, but you got a thing. Like, oh man, I'm slowed. Oh yeah, it's night. So as an example, Nightstalker get on you, slows you down and whatnot. Boom, you can purge that so that you can cleanse yourself. Same thing goes if, let's say you're fighting a silencer. Silencers are always really annoying because, well, he silences you. And you just gotta rework where it kind of changes how his stuff does things. Where whenever you cast a spell, after you get affected by Arcane Curse, then you get a silence. So if he ever does anything on you, you can just... What? Arcane Curse is unpurgeable? Huh? Well, I just learned something today. Anyways, let's say you're trying to do something but you got silence. Well, you can use Guardian Greaves as a purge in order to get the silence off of you. Obviously not the Arcane Curse, because that doesn't go away, which I find irritating. I did not know that until now. Hello, editing coming in for a brief moment. I realized over in editing that Silencer gains the Undispellable effect for his Arcane Curse as a level 20 talent. I did not know this at the time, but here I am correcting myself before you all in the comments are like, but bro, it's a level 20 talent, why don't you read? Anyways, back to the video. So I think instead, if you're going up against Silencer, it might be better to go for a Yule's. Right? Oh gosh, that is so annoying. Okay, but if you're able to use Supernova, then it gets rid of it, because that gets rid of everything. No, it doesn't. Yeah, because it's over. I'm going on a tangent. Save it for a different video. Save the rant for a different video. Just go away, Silencer. What do I want to talk about next? Yule's Meteor Hammer. This is actually a fairly fun combo that Phoenix can utilize. So, what Meteor Hammer does, activate it after a 2.5 second delay, impacts the ground, does a bit of damage. It's really good for pushing towers, mostly because it does damage to those towers. Let me get one back. There we go. And that actually does like a very good amount of damage for an item. However, what you'll be using it for is using Dive, Yules, and then Meteor Hammer. Once they land, they'll get hit by the Yules, and you can follow up with the Sunray after that. After tinkering around with this, if you're planning on going this build, it would probably be a good idea to go for the Hotspot facets, because while you are a fairly far enough away, it might be beneficial to go for the Hotspot talent instead of Dying Light, because most of the time you're going to be kind of far away anyway. So you could potentially do that to set up for a Sunray, and then you can do a lot of extra damage with that. Not only that, but Meteor Hammer has extra spell lamp due to being made by Kaya. Kaya has 10% at base now? It used to have 8%, that's why I'm even pointing that out. Spell lamp on Sunray is kind of good because of the extra max health damage that it deals, but it also increases the base damage? No, it doesn't. Okay, good to know. I thought it did. But anyways, so without the spell amp, we get about half of their health. With the spell amp, let me get that refreshed. About the same distance. Ooh, you get like an extra 200? So you get a good small chunk of their health taken off as well. So, problem I found going for the build of trying to go for Meteor Hammer Yules, as fun as it honestly is to dive in, Yule someone, and have it as a setup for Sunray. Does it slow? Oh, it does slow for a little bit. It's a 20% slow for the duration of the burn of Meteor Hammer. That's good to know. So yeah, that really does set it up very well. But later on in the game, I have found trying to use that as your main damage source leaves you open to just getting hit by other people. So it's would probably be better going for a Shiva's Guard later on in order to slow everyone, making it more difficult for them to run away from the impact zone. And then you can use Yules to protect yourself when the need arises. Of course, follow up, Wind Waker is probably the next best thing. Reduces the cooldown, allows you to cast it on allies, and you can also use it to just move to a different location, allowing you to protect yourself even more. And again, relying on Shivas in order to slow people down, to get Meteor Hammer used a lot better. So, we all know that Supernova is a really cool ability, right? We all know that while it's up, everyone wants to try and hit it. And if they're fast enough, they can destroy it. That's kind of their whole gimmick, and the main weakness that Phoenix has. I already went over a bunch of different ways for people to gain extra effects and just destroy Nova with ease. But even with that, without like any setup time, they can just kill it. So, items to go if you want Supernova to survive more often. Of course, Heaven's Halberd is kind of the general item that you want to get for this, because they can't really attack when they're disarmed. Ooh, that's pretty cool. Oh, other thing to note, and I'm going to get rid of this silencer soon, but the disarm actually lasts longer for ranged heroes. So you could prioritize ranged heroes whenever you're setting up for a Supernova, and that'd probably be a pretty good idea. Oh, look at that, he can't do any damage to it, even though he's ranged. That can set you up with a lot of time. And I'm just gonna check this, because I haven't actually done. Okay, yeah, there was a time when Heaven's Halberd pierced BKB, but after that change it doesn't. So that's something to note if they're trying to build for BKB or purges in general. They can get... Wait, is it purgeable? Here I am being a professional, being like, I know everything. And then here I am trying to figure out some things. Oh, it's unpurgeable.
I wouldn't hear of it.
Okay, so BKB is to be able to attack during that time, but otherwise it's unpurgeable, so they have to have BKB in order to get that to work. That's good to know. And this is frankly what I do a lot if I find something. Let's see. Disarm is unpurgeable. BKB still ignores. Save, publish, and this is what I do. Every time I find something, I try to have it as a note for the future, because if you haven't noticed, this game is extremely complicated, and I might need to know things, and it's hard to remember stuff, so I always write things down if ever I find something interesting. I even thought about it as like a Mad Lad thing, trying to write stuff for like every single hero on the overview here, so that like specific interactions with abilities are accounted for. Oh gosh, that's gonna take a bit, and I think I'm gonna talk about that more if I get into an actual video that goes more in detail over hero interactions. I think that'd be good to go over, yeah. Anyways, if you're going up against a Snapfire, this is probably a really good option, because everyone knows Lil Shredder does a lot of attacks. It just does a lot of attacks, that's what it does. However, you can't really attack when you're disarmed. Look at that. Look at all that time that you have. Now there's not enough time to get additional attacks, but you understand. So, Heaven's Halberd, really good if you're up against people like that. Of course, there's exceptions. Lifestealer is an exception. Same with Juggernaut, because both of them have an ability that just provides them with spell immunity, or debuff immunity is what it's called. So that obviously just makes it really difficult to stop them from being disarmed. For that reason, if you're up against a Juggernaut or a Lifestealer and you find yourself as Phoenix, I'm sorry to say this, but you're kind of screwed. Main thing that you can do to fight against this is going for a Shiva's Guard, or Scythe of Vice. Why did I just say that? Because you can't really have them get rid of it if they can't cast spells, because they're a pig now. They can't get rid of it. Scythe of Vice is just good in general for Phoenix, because you can dive in, stun someone for actually a pretty good chunk of time while they're like, oh, I'm gonna... Give me a moment. If that was a more farm joke, he would have actually destroyed the Nova.
Swiftly now.
However, a trap that a lot of people fall into is that Scythe of Vice, as powerful as it is really expensive. And the components to actually build it don't provide much. Oh, you now have more intelligence. That's kind of neat. You have more mana regen. And there we go, now you have it. Cool. It's going to cost a really pretty penny. So, I would recommend if you're going to go for a Scythe of Vice, because you're up against a Juggernaut Lifestealer, go for Hand of Midas. This will give you a more consistent flow of cash, especially if you're in the support role. You're going to need Midas in order to do that. However, of course, main problem, you're not going to be able to get any other items, because you're going to be spending all your money on Midas and Scythe. Although, again, depending on how the game goes, you could go for other items, go for Aether Lens, or other stuff that I've recommended already.
Today, I watched a bunch of dumbos wander around doing nothing.
Shut up, Meepo. Other general purpose items to get, Shivas and Radiance. I kind of mentioned it in my previous video where I would mention pseudo hits. What that actually means, it kind of gives the illusion of an extra hit, but it doesn't really. So Shiva's kind of provides an extra 1 pseudo hit. This is mostly because of Shiva's Guard's passive, where it reduces the attack speed of all enemies around it by 45, which actually is pretty notable for heroes that don't have a lot of attack speed. But of course for heroes who don't care, because they have stuff like Ghoul Frenzy that gives you bonus attack speed anyway, or other items in general that just gives attack speed, it's not much. But it could, especially for against supports, potentially give you an extra hit. And that's kind of why I would say it gives you 1 pseudo hit. Radiance, on the other hand, provides a 15% miss chance on enemies affected, which that's pretty nice, applies a slight miss chance. Let's see if he ever hits the Phoenix, or misses. Oh, there's 1 evade. 2 evade. Cool. You're now going to be hit by every single one of my spells. Let's see, do you hit any more? Oh, evade. 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 That is because Blinding Sun applies another mischance, Radiance applies a mischance, and also evasion. And I guess you could go even further with this by getting a Halberd, and all of a sudden it's like really annoying to hit Phoenix. Try hitting me, nerd, come on. It's not easy, you spend all that time to attack and you got an evade. Another evade. Yeah, you see what I mean. So that means it might be a good idea to go for Radiance Halberd as a way to say, ha, good luck doing any attacks, because you're blinded. Oh, I just thought of something funny. You could have Troll Warlord as a battle buddy, because one of his abilities... Is it Whirling Axes? It's Whirling Axe, yeah. That effect applies a mischance to people. Does it last one? It does kind of last a bit. So actually, Troll could be kind of a really aggravating laning partner if he's with Phoenix, just because of the excessive mischance applying. Though all that being said, Phoenix specifically doesn't have to get Radiance. It could be someone else. Not Troll, obviously, he's going for other items, but let's say he was some other hero that could go for Radiance, and now he has Radiance and Phoenix doesn't, but everyone's still affected by the mischance. That could be a potential thing. You know what? If you're on a team with Phoenix, try to go for a hero that casually builds a Radiance. Options, let me actually list a couple. Spectre is one. Radiance is one item that she gets quite often. Alchemist is another. He usually gets Radiance in order to farm a lot. Brewmaster as well. His Radiance applies to all of his illusions. Or no, it's the Earth illusion only. But he really likes having Radiance because it's hard to kill him anyway. I know Abaddon Radiance is an option. I don't know if it's in meta, but that's like something to note. I know Wraith Kings also go Radiance. Lifestealer, ironically, sometimes goes Radiance in order to help with farming. So stuff like that. And I'm about to kill everyone here. That's funny. Now, crazy people would like to mention Aghanims as a potential, because it just gives you a guaranteed 1, 2, or 3 hits depending on the level. I went on a rant on the first video about Ahgs and my thoughts on it. Me personally, I oddly enough don't like the extra static hits as like a selling point for an item. Same thing for the extra talent where you get an extra 2 hits. Cool, that's an extra 2 hits. That was 2 hits right there. I'm not saying it's the worst talent to go. It just feels more underwhelming than extra dive range. I just like doing this a whole lot more, really. That and Aghanim Scepter with the extra effective saving allies. I didn't actually go over this, but y'all heard of Pudge? All of the difficulties that Supernova has gets completely overshadowed by... There, ally is now saved, Pudge can walk away, and it's really hard for enemies to actually kill him because he's really tanky, so the buddy inside is actually pretty safe. And also, the buddy inside doesn't die when Pudge himself dies. Boom, what do you think? That's a pretty good replacement for the Supernova Ahgs. Here's another example, Undying, where allies can just kind of hide in his tombstone, and similarly, they're pretty much protected. There's like no negative to them being inside it. They can hide in there whenever they feel like as well. Get these zombies out of the way. And on top of it all, when the tombstone dies, the guy inside of it gets stunned for a moment, but doesn't die. So, when it comes to Phoenix using it...
Killing spree.
Oh,
Double.
Jug just got a double kill. Wow. Other more annoying thing when it comes to the Pudge effect, that's a shard. Undying. That effect is also a shard. So it's significantly cheaper for those two to get the same effect. And it's just better. But of course, Phoenix isn't Pudge or Undying. He provides different stuff. So being able to also provide a save, though under very specific circumstances, is nice. But you really shouldn't prioritize it as a thing or a selling point of Phoenix. It's frankly too situational to use because it depends on what the enemies pick. Maybe they have Snapfire with Full Shredder. Same thing with if they have the Jug, Lifestealer, or attack speed heroes in general. Or just heroes that really don't care about Supernova in general and they just run away. Heck, having your carry in the Supernova is probably a fate worse than death, because you just killed him potentially, or took him out of the fight. I could go endlessly. But frankly, it's just not worth the money. I will say though, even as a blessing from Roshan, it's not even worth that much. Try to convince your allies to take it if you can, but if no one will take it and you kind of have no other option, that's when you take it. I've lost games because I refuse to pick this thing up, because even I've been kind of annoyed that I can't just like press the button and save myself as easily. I have to either click specifically on my hero or press Alt and then also click it, which adds extra buttons that I need to press, and I've already have a lot of muscle memory without the scepter. It just adds more unnecessary problems. What else should I mention? Okay, now I'm getting into the nitty-gritty details. Holy Locket, that's another good option, especially when you go for the healing facet. Because, extra healing? Yeah, Sunray does a bunch of healing. Look, that troll is really low on health. Okay. Well, what do we do about that? We give him some healing. That is actually like a really beneficial amount of healing coming from that. Especially for in combat healing. He got healed like half of his health there. And since it scales off of max health, that makes it really good. Especially when you have really tanky boys. You could go Primal. He has a lot of health. Heal him pretty nicely. Centaur, a lot of health, heal him up. Spectre as well is also pretty good at this. She usually goes for a lot of health and does her health as damage using the dispersion. It's pretty good. Oh, Chaos Knight. I keep forgetting Chaos Knight. He is a really good laning partner for Phoenix because of the extra stun, maneuverability. Also, Phoenix can keep all of his illusions alive. So that's something to note a lot of the time. So, Holy Locket is actually a good pickup. Oh, Refresher Orb. Ooh. Refresher Orb is one of my favorite items to get, but kind of similar problem. You gotta be able to first survive the Supernova in order for Refresher to actually take effect. But what you can do with it is, going into a fight, well, actually wait. You're probably gonna have a Shiva's, mostly because that makes the build even better. So I have spirits ready. Shivas, dive in, hit everything. I don't have shard. But let's say I have shard right now, and I have another sunray out. Wow, sunray out is pretty good. Alright, gonna reposition, get ready to go back in. Shiva's in, using everything, and now you get to do that entire combo again. The amount of pressure that you can put on with this combo is incredible. Already, using Supernova on its own is a lot of pressure to put on people. They have to run away or fight it. But now, if they get hit, you can combo up with another one, which, that's a lot of extra damage that you can do. Of course, again, huge problem with this is if the enemy team has a lot of ways to destroy the Supernova. What ends up happening is that your Supernova and Refresher Orb get desynced, so maybe you want to use it on respawn in order to have it available again. Well, now you have to wait for like 3 minutes to do that combo. So now your Supernova and Refresher is out of sync. The damage potential is out of sync, as I mentioned, so it makes actually pulling that off more difficult. So this is, again, really good if you can consistently survive with Supernova. If you can, I'd recommend to pick it up. The extra damage you can do is incredible. If you can't survive Supernova, I wouldn't recommend getting it. Instead, going for Halberd, Orchid, Scythe, something to stop them from casting the ability to attack you a lot, or hex them, disarm them, blah blah, yada yada, you get the idea. Last couple good options I should mention, Ethereal Blade. Also another one of the ways to stop them from doing things kind of ability. However, I don't go E-Blade a whole lot, mostly because it's very expensive, being over 5,000. Is it more expensive than Shiva's? Slightly more expensive than Shiva's. At that point, still, you would rather go for a Halberd, because it's cheaper, but the extra damage you can do with it is kind of the main benefit. Especially when people are at range, you can ideally do extra bonus damage and whatnot. It's a little unreliable, in my opinion. You do have to very much be going for the Sunray damaging build. But I don't know, because, let's see, you have to get in, cast it on them, and then have them at range for a good chunk of time. I mean, again, it feels okay. Just for me personally, it takes a while to start up. It's a good upgrade from Aether Lens, though. So I will not deny that, and the extra damage it can do is also good. Oh my gosh, good grief. I am apparently in a really good habit at not checking stuff. Alright, this is post after I did the whole initial recording. In editing, I realized while I was doing stuff, I didn't even have the Hotspot facet. Which, wow, that's really cringe of me. Okay, there is the damage potential of it. Okay. It's actually good. Actually is. I'm just being dumb and didn't actually select the hecking Hotspot facet to show it actually working very well. So, Ether Blade, for the extra cast range, extra damage, in order to get a really damaging Sunray out. That actually is a very effective strat. One ability to get to do all that. I just, for whatever reason, didn't realize that I had Dying Light on and not Hotspot, so I was misjudging it. Oh, cool. I wish I'm not that sloppy. However, every time that I try to fix these things and try to go in and redo everything, then I just end up taking forever. So I'm just ranting until I make a mistake and then fixing that in editing. Yeah, sorry about that. Something else I just now remembered I should probably mention that is a downside compared to Heaven's Halberd is it is purgeable. So it can be getting rid of and dispelled. Comparison, Heaven's Halberd, and we made this discovery a moment ago. it is unpurgeable. Can't get rid of it. So for disarming people in general, halberd is just literally better. But if you want to do the extra damage, Ether Blade is there as well. One combo you could try to do, if you're really wanting to meme, is going for an E-Blade into Dagon. Because you can just kind of drive by, shoot. Well, okay, now you gotta make sure that you Ether Blade first. Yeah. Okay, max ranging it. The slow projectile speed makes it harder to actually land that effect. Those are all options. Dagon, though. I think I would personally think this is actually a good item, even like a level 1/1. Although probably good if you're going for like a more Phoenix mid kind of a build. Just being able to do that extra burst damage without the reliance of any of your abilities is really nice, especially when most of your skills take a good chunk of time to actually work. And maybe you might be getting attacked at the same time. Being able to get a little bit of that health back, at least, is a good idea. Of course, main problem is that the full version is really expensive, being at like 7,500. So might want to be careful buying that. Overwhelming Blink is the best Blink upgrade Phoenix can get. And that is mostly because it is basically a Shiva's card on top of it being a Blink dagger. So, actually, I think one build that could be a potential thing is trying to go for a Dying Light build that instead of going Boots of Travel, you try to go for Overwhelming, because you can get extra health with that. Get in place, get people slowed enough to get on top of them, do some extra damage with the fact that you have a lot of strength. Could I potentially also get Heart with this just because of the extra health, or do I want to go for other health items like Octarine? Maybe Octarine just to be more available. I feel like at this point I'm just describing all of the items. Okay. Funny pickups that you don't go. Don't go these. These are bad options. Okay, maybe not Bloodstone, because recent changes actually made that a little bit more interesting. I don't recommend going it too often, because all it really does for you is make your spells easier to hit. So, when it comes to Sunray, you don't have to have it like directly on people in order to affect them. I'm gonna remove that, refresh. Because normally, they have to be touching the ray in order to take the damage. Bloodstone makes it so that they only need to be grazing it instead. And it's fairly generous too. This also makes the tip of the sun ray slightly more, so you can actually hit people from slightly further away with this. Okay, going off of that, swapped over to Hotspot. Let's actually see the damage potential of that. Does the damage actually increase any further? That's a lot of damage. Okay. Taking off Bloodstone, getting him snapping within range. Does it actually do slightly more damage? Wait a second. Okay, I don't want to go into testing that too much, but maybe the extra spell AoE also applies to the hotspot thing. How does hotspot check for it? Does it only check like how far it is away from the middle of the sunray and then outwards, and if they're being affected by it, or is it actually extra cast range? I feel like it'd be easier to check if how far away they are from the halfway point, instead of constantly updating it along the line. That's probably like how they programmed it. So Bloodstone can potentially do slightly more damage with it? Hey, extra 75 cast range? Okay, enough about that. Fire Spirits. Bloodstone does benefit this quite nicely, because it makes the AoE so much bigger. So without it, here is the area of effect. Doesn't hit the Snapfire. Get Bloodstone on. Bigger area of effect. Hits the Snapfire. This already makes it significantly easier to actually land your spells, because you can just kind of barely graze people, and it actually hits everything. And of course there's Supernova, where the actual aura that it emanates is slightly increased by 75, but the distance that it covers is already like practically the screen. So it only increases it by a small amount, which isn't a whole lot to go off of. Although now that I think about it, extra damage that you get with Sunray with the Hotspot talent actually could be interesting. Originally, I remember like a video I made a bit ago. I was trying to use Dying Light, and because it was basically a Radiance, have Bloodstone. Bloodstone provides a spell lifesteal amount and can be activated to multiply it even further, so allow Phoenix to just survive for way longer than he should. It's like, ah man, I'm dying. No, I'm not. Could potentially work, but I think with the recent Dying Light nerf, where it doesn't do as much damage, it doesn't deal as much damage on missing health as before, it's not as reliable. But, swapping back over to Hotspot, that could potentially help you do more. Other thing, because it also provides Spell Amp, while you're hitting people with it, you're healing almost all of it back, so you don't actually lose health from casting your abilities anymore. So that's an alternative to Heart of Tarask, so that you can... Because normally you would get that in order to basically negate all the health costs. But Bloodstone could be a more offensive option. We'll go with that. Okay, case for Diffusal. At least a normal level 1 Diffusal, minimum specs or whatever. It is a $2,500 slow that is honestly kind of strong, and it doesn't cost much mana to cast this. So you could potentially use it as a way to maneuver around the battlefield. It's on a very low cooldown too, so you could use that as just to apply a slow to someone. The extra mana burn isn't a whole lot for Phoenix. He doesn't attack fast enough for it to matter, nor does he attack much at all, due to Sunray Supernova can't attack during that time, so can't benefit from on-hit effects too much. However, having that extra slow as something that people have to work with actually could make it really good, not just with Dying Light, but just in general. Okay, comparing that to Rod of Atos, which has a slightly longer cooldown, slightly more mana cost, and has more health stats. It only applies for 2.5 seconds, right? 2 seconds, actually. And Diffusal actually lasts for 4 seconds. So it is a longer crowd control effect. So I believe a good decision if you want to make between the two, does the enemy have movement abilities? Say a Storm Spirit. You know these guys, they like zipping around a lot. Well, I'm going to stop you. What do you know, they can't move around during that time, which could provide your allies some time to catch up. In comparison, try to slow them. Storm really doesn't care about slows, so he can just ignore that. But, let's say for tankier heroes that don't generally have a lot of mobility skills with them, you can use this to make it more difficult for them to run away. And heck, you could even try to build for the Diffusal and get some extra attack speed. Don't know what would be a good cheap option. But for more heroes that are already slow, you can just make them slower for longer. So that is the distinction between the two. I think both of them, can actually be good options. Now, when it comes to actually upgrading Disperser or Diffusal to Disperser, I don't think it's worth it personally. And it's only really good if you're someone that likes moving around a whole lot. Phoenix doesn't need to move around all that much, maybe to reposition himself. But he usually uses Icarus Dive to reposition, and if he needs a cheaper repositioning tool, there is Force Staff and Blink Dagger, which are less than half the cost. However, I did find in a game that I played, I think I actually had a gameplay of it, if you are fighting against Night Stalker just as a random example. Thing that he does a lot is that he casts his silence field around you. You can use Disperser to run away while he can't catch up to you. That is one option. However, again, it might just be better to go for a Force Staff. Because, at least in the case when you're fighting Night Stalker, all you need to do is just get far enough away to cast your Supernova, and all of a sudden, Night Stalker loses all of his extra benefits. And he gets very vulnerable during that time. So, Force Staff is just better than getting a Disperser, basically. Glipnir? Kind of weird. I feel like it could potentially be a interesting option, so that you combo it with Icarus Dive to root multiple people. And also kind of sets up for Supernova, because, hey, everyone's rooted, they can't run away as well, so you can kind of dive behind them. And if they're trying to run away, then they got slowed, so what can they do? However, the buildup is weird. You need Maelstrom. Phoenix doesn't normally get Maelstrom. He doesn't attack much. Can't attack with twice his abilities that are active. Rod of Atos he goes, but otherwise not particularly the best option, but I like the idea of it. There was one idea I had, trying to get Helm of the Dominator, specifically to dominate a Centaur creep. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Because a problem that Phoenix has is teammates that don't stun people. Centaur has a stun. You just have a stun. Although, might be good to get a Force Staff, just to actually combo with this, so that you can, let's say Night Stalker is a Centaur real quick. You can just force him into a battle and have him do his stun thing. That's not what he's doing. I just don't have the time to set up for a Centaur at the moment. However, kind of expensive and requires micromanaging of a second hero or a second creep, which for some people is kind of difficult, especially me. Special note for Abyssal, don't build this. I remember years ago that there was one of those hey guys, here's a broken build channels, and they're like, hey guys, you should get Abyssal. It's a really good build. And they had like a really weird game where it just barely did anything, especially with like the random bashes that just never happen. You know, I expected there to be a bash just to prove me wrong, and there isn't one, and there still isn't. Oh, there we go. So that's not a good option. But ever since that day, I was so annoyed by that. So I left a little note to be like, man, this is so bad. Never pick this up. Worst option, rather pick up Mask of Madness than Abyssal. Same thing with Basher. So that's why I'm so annoyed, or that's why I sound like I'm pissed with this text. There were some other items that I kind of mentioned in the first video that I really shouldn't have and saved it for here, but here we are. And I guess that stuff doesn't really matter, I guess. Neutrals. Neutrals are kind of cool. Go for the cast range ones. Eye of Vizier and Telescope. Seer Stone, if you can get those, if you're going Hotspot, obviously. Timeless Relic for the extra damage, that's kind of a given. Ogre Seal Totem for the extra mobility. I love this thing. I don't know why everyone sleeps on it. That has so much mobility. It's on a long cooldown, but now you have 2 long cooldown mobility skills. Havoc Hammer is kind of cool. Just kind of slows them as well, deals some strength damage. Good option. Cloak of Flame, if you want to cosplay as an actual Firebird, now you have like 4 layers of dealing damage per second if you can go for Dying Light, Extra Health, Radiance. It's a lot of damage. I will say get a sets cap if you can. Applies a purge every time that you would probably need it. Same thing with status resistance. It allows you to actually survive any ganks that might kill you. I honestly like Stormcrafter, because it just does like a casual extra burst of damage every now and again and does a minute slow. Of course it doesn't go on Snapfire, come on. There we go. This honestly is really good just as a farming tool to kind of help while Fire Spirits is down or Icarus Dive is down. You can use it to finish off creeps and use it to farm. But at this point in the game, there's kind of no point in farming. The game's either almost over or will probably be a while. Giant's Ring. Big bird. But guarantee, anytime that you're somehow get to the tier 5, go for Force Boots. extra health regen. It's a force boots as well. It's on a much lower, or it's a force staff as well. It's on a much lower cooldown. You can force enemies. You can force your allies. You can force yourself, and it's really far. It is such a good item. I don't know why it hasn't been nerfed since it got introduced, but it is so good. Wait, it basic dispels on use. What? Seriously? Woo! Oh my gosh, it does. Didn't know that. You could get Ivana's feather to cosplay as a bird. Whisper of the Dread and Dragon Scale are both really good. I already talked about it to length, how good Helm of Iron Will is. Having that as a neutral is just very, very nice to have. Whisper of the Dread increases your spell amp by 8%, which is pretty good until you get Timeless Relic, whenever that comes. Vampire Feigns gives you Spell Lifesteal, which will probably go with that. Craggy Coat if enemies have a lot of armor, or physical damage, sorry. Ceremonial Robe in order to help with team fighting prowess. Dandelion if you're going up against a lot of magical burst damage. Oh yeah, tier 1 items. Go for Royal Jelly, that helps you survive. Or Seeds of Serenity. The extra health and health regen is really nice. Safety Bubble, it's Safety Bubble. Get extra regen and extra barrier to heal yourself up. Arcane Ring in order to provide mana for yourself and allies. It's just, Shovel as well. Get extra random loot. Okay, I feel like I have talked at length about everything involving Phoenix and items. I don't think I can go any further with that because I've gone fairly into detail about what's really good options. Yeah, I think that's just going to be it for part 2 covering items for Phoenix. Hope you enjoyed it, at least some amount. I think next entry I'm going to do on this, do I want to do hero interactions first, or do I want to do ability interactions? Probably ability interactions, because there's a good chunk of stuff there that might be noteworthy. Although I think I've talked at length about a bunch of nuances with abilities just going over everything already. But there's still some stuff that I haven't mentioned that might be beneficial, and I'm probably going to have to go into an actual Dota map in order to demonstrate them. But anyways, oh yeah, when I'm going to get the rest of the Passives and Facets series done, not sure. I should start working on that after I get this recording done, and that'll probably take me about a week or 2 to get done because I put a lot of effort into making that look good so that it can last long. And I'm kind of annoyed that not many people watch that. And then people are going to watch this thing and it's going to get more views. And I'm like, why do you all want to know Phoenix so much? Why don't you look at this? Oh yeah, Phoenix is a hero. This one has like, I don't know, I'm talking too much. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it at least some amount. And you all have a good night.